This is Dynver and Jayne coming at you from God's country, Colorado. This is officially our first cast, whatever radio show you want to call it. I'm Dynver and this is Jayne. Say hello.
Hello, cheers.
Cheers. We're currently drinking some Mama's Little Yellow Pills by Oscar Blues, and we have kind of an interesting story for you tonight. Just a little bit of background on us. We are educated individuals, we have degrees, and we do not want to say much about us on radio, but we do want to have conversations about some really controversial topics.
But tonight, a little less controversial.
I guess, depending on how you want to see it. It's going to be fun. So, our topic tonight is masturbation. And Jayne is specifically laughing about this because we've been having a conversation about this for the last few days. I have studied in psychology, human sexuality, and she is definitely not adverse to the realm of open sexuality. She has authored a couple novels herself on the topic, and she
Lots of experience.
Yeah, she goes quite deep into the fantasy realm of all of it. So we're just gonna kind of get down into it because this was really Jayne's topic for tonight that we're going to explore. So I'm just gonna let her start off with the.
Okay, well, I'm going through a bad breakup. And with somebody that I've been with for about 20 years now. And I am wanting to go back into my open sexuality. And am finding that when I masturbate, I am crying when I think of him. So I sent a little message to my pal Dynver here one morning and told him that it was not normal to cry while masturbating. Fortunately, he was masturbating at the same time, so we were able.
Right as I got the message, literally it said her complications about masturbating, and I was like, oh my god, can I at least come first? And so this is really where we got to the topic. Later I texted her back and I said, I was masturbating right when you said that, and it was like the joy of her day because what she said was very serious.
It lightened it up.
Yeah. And I think that's really important to understand about human sexuality is we do have to make a little bit lighter of a topic of it, especially when talking about it. And even tonight when we were at the wine bar and we were talking about masturbation, we noticed everything got a little bit louder around us when we started talking about it, and we were discussing the fact that everyone does it.
But no one wants to talk about it.
Exactly. No one wants to talk about it. So we're going to talk about it tonight. I'm not quite sure what we're going to talk about, so let's just get into it.
Okay. Well, what I want to talk about specifically is how Dynver and I have talked about when you are with a man as a woman, you often hold their DNA inside of you, and it changes you. So when I'm on my own trying to reconnect with my sexuality, and women like to fantasize, and your brain kind of takes over, and you're going, and then he pops into your head. And you want to push through it. My ex. You want to push through it, so you pull back and you find a different reference point. But when you're heartbroken and that person has been so much a part of you on a chemical standpoint, it can really ruin the experience. And I'm getting a little pissed off, actually, because I am not coming because I'm too busy crying.
So, okay, for me especially, I think I have a different perspective on what we hold on to in our visionary core when we're masturbating, because for me, especially when I get into a relationship, it's easy for me to masturbate to that person while I'm, getting interested in them, and then I am in a relationship with them. But once it starts to fizzle out, the masturbation fantasy is completely gone whatsoever.
So who do you fantasize about?
Well, we will get into this.
Okay.
But what I want to talk about for a second is the difference between what a woman is looking for and what a man is looking for when they're masturbating.
Yes.
Because really, for a guy, it tends to be just this orgasm climax. But then there's some times where, you are going at it and normally you have this awesome feeling, but you don't have that much time in the morning and
Right.
you get off too quickly and you're like, oh, that was really crap. That really sucks.
I need a little more.
Yeah, and so I mean, but for guys, I think it's a little more simple. Whereas I think for women, especially when they want to get off, in a sense, it's a little more emotional. It's a little more, it's a little bit different than just an orgasm, right?
Yes, and the crying is happening when I'm about to orgasm. And so it ruins it. Which is really frustrating, women, you know. You know when you're almost there and it doesn't happen, how it ruins your whole day. And I am a morning masturbator.
Well, I think for men,
so...
this is where we got the concept of blue balls. I mean, you have, and actually, there's so much debate about whether or not blue balls actually exist. But it really does suck when you get right there and something interrupts it, either an idea or a concept or a person, especially when it's your ex, because, you know, masturbating to your ex, unless they were really hot and you're really heartbroken over them and they like are that thing forever, is not appealing. They really have to be like Dr. Manhattan in bed.
He was. But here's the thing. I don't start off fantasizing about him. I start off with usually lesbian thoughts. Then I move into, you know, some of my real life experiences. It's only when I'm right about to orgasm that he invades my fantasy. And it's horrible. It's horrible. And what I'm really concerned about is that I'm constantly going to cry every time I masturbate.
That has to be really horrible. I can imagine that.
It's kind of cathartic.
But, you know, it's interesting. In psychology, we see a lot of people women in general, who have either traumatic experiences or breakup experiences, and the orgasm experience becomes very emotional for them. Guys don't seem to be that attached to the orgasm experience as that. Like, you don't hear about a guy crying before they're about to orgasm, but you do hear about them being
after.
You do hear about them being little sallies about sex. So it's really interesting, and the way that guys kind of come back to being hurt over a relationship is usually more manipulative, as far as they try to make you feel bad or they try to come back, but you don't really see it manifesting so much in the masturbation level.
That's what that's what I'm saying. Like, is this a girl thing then?
I'm wondering.
Am I going to be fine when I have sex again?
Well, and that's a real question. I mean, are you going to be fine when you have sex again? Because if you're crying now, then are you? What is that? I mean, what if this guy comes and sweeps you off your feet and is just a total like hunk of a guy and really gets that emotion going on you and erases what you did with your ex, like, to your current thoughts? Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, if you just go out and like have sex just to erase him.
Okay, so here's the question: to masturbate or to have sex?
Well, actually, it's scientifically proven that masturbating increases on average 10 years of someone's life. So, but the same has not been said for the same people who are sexually active. And I think this has to do with a lot of the frustration and the drama that comes from being sexually active with people. Because as much as we want to like live in a society where we can go hook up with people or have one night stands, the reality is that people's emotions get caught up. They always do. So it makes it hard to just go and have sex. Where masturbation is like almost free, you know, you can do it with yourself, you can do it whenever, you can get off to whatever stimulus you want, and it just is what it is. I thought it was really interesting, one of the gurus that I was listening to, because especially when I was looking into what Hindu philosophy thinks about sex and masturbation and pornography, it came up that this guru has said, pornography is not the bad thing. Masturbation's not the bad thing. Sex is not the bad thing. It's the attachment to what you have done after you have sex that's a bad thing. So if you look at porn and you feel bad afterwards, or you're too consumed with the illusion instead of real sex, or if you're overly masturbating where it's taking up your entire life, or you're going to hook up with people and it's so meaningless because you are really trying to fulfill something that you haven't identified with. That's where it becomes toxic. But I think just in general, masturbation's a wonderful thing. I think it keeps people from being very aggressive every single
I
day.
agree, and I have been a little aggressive and really need this to work itself out.
Well, isn't there some level where masturbation just isn't enough? Where
Oh, yeah, definitely, especially as a woman.
oh, I think definitely as a
Especially as
man.
a. Oh, really?
Yeah, I think just there's a point where you really want to have sex, and I mean, especially for me, I'm not an overly promiscuous person. I don't hook up with a lot of people, and I really like to have sex, and in my opinion, I'm very good at it. But and that's what I've been told as well. I mean, I don't choose partners who are bad at sex either. So, but in general, I've had some very big bouts, even just recently, where I haven't had a lot of sex, and it becomes very hard. You know, masturbation
It
just
becomes very hard.
yeah, even to the context of what I'm saying in all forms, yes, it becomes very hard, and it's really difficult to try to get through that. And you know, sometimes you want to be focused on your life and you want to be focused on things that are right, whether it's your degree or your job or your children. And but then there's this human need where you really want to have sex, but sex takes so much damn time to go and find and have, and you
Yes,
know,
and maybe that's what the actual issue I'm having is that I still just want to have sex with my ex.
well, I mean, there's that's a normal thing. To like, how many of us have been gotten with somebody that we really adored and loved and were attracted to, and then later we really wanted to have sex with them? We're not abstinent from a relationship with them because we're abstinent with ourselves. You know,
Right.
we're not in a relationship with this person because it's something that they did or we did, or you know, it came to a head. But in the end, it's still like we need that sex. And you know, just because the best person we ever had sex with may not be the person who can cherish us as an individual in a relationship, it doesn't mean that they weren't the best sex of our life.
He was second best.
Ooh, here we go with some secrets.
He was second best. I told you earlier tonight that my ex-husband was the best. Um, but without divulging too much information, there's a deeper connection with this ex. And I feel like when I'm masturbating, I need to push through it. But it feels weird to cry and orgasm at the same time. I did the last time that oh, that was this morning. So this morning,
Yes.
I pushed through it and orgasmed while crying.
Uh,
It was kind of releasing.
that's very interesting. Tell me
I
more about
kind
that.
of felt afterwards lighter. But it really, I mean, it still sucked.
Yeah.
It still sucked, and I was pissed. But I just decided I was not going to let him not allow me to finish.
Good. Good for you. I think.
But it was a hard cry. It was like deep. It was, I don't know, it was like Kundalini crying.
That must be rough. That's a big one. I mean,
It was intense. I mean, like full on crocodile tears.
have you ever done tantric orgasming during masturbation?
No.
Okay, so there was this technique that I started long time after I got into meditation. I didn't even know about love meditation or sex meditation, and I had heard about this ancient Egyptian technique they did, and this is where they got the ankh from. And there was this technique called ankhing. And there is a technique that you can find on the
Ankhing.
internet, yeah, and you can find it anywhere, and it literally is probably one of the most amazing things you could ever do for yourself. I just made up my own technique because it was very obvious from what was described of what you should do. But basically, the ancient Egyptians believed that when you orgasmed, you sent your energy all the way out into the universe and just basically like sprayed it all over the place, right? As dirty as that sounds, it's exactly what it means.
You keep going,
So-
my friend.
so they would literally just put all their energy out in the universe, and then if you just let it all go, you would be devoid. And this is the same thing that the Chinese talk about orgasming and letting all your chi out. Well, the Egyptians found a way to keep their chi in, or their prana, or whatever you want to call it, and literally they would send it out of their body, and they would encapsulate it, and it would come back as an arc over their aura, and it would come back into them, and they would have these intense orgasms and keep all this energy. Well, the first time I ever did this, I was masturbating, and I felt my orgasm come on, and it took a couple times. Like literally, I failed like 3 times before I made it happen. And I'd imagine for someone who is not a meditator that it would take them longer. But finally, I got it, and I sent my energy. I felt it go out into the universe, and I trapped it in this big arc and brought it back into my heart. And literally, you would think that this would be a grounding sensation. It is not a grounding sensation. It is not a grounding sensation. It is actually, as soon as the energy came back into me, it was like I was lifted up into the sky, and like I felt like this tingly sensation, and I could see like stars in the back of my head and in my eyes, and my whole body was vibrating. Right.
Okay, so you're going to teach me this.
I can.
Okay.
Definitely. But
that will not be on this podcast.
it was probably no, definitely. It was probably one of the most profound sexual experiences that I've ever had, and I've had it over and over with myself. But even not, this is why partners practice tantra together.
Right.
It's really hard to do that with one person if you're the only person.
You really think
level.
It's harder with by yourself than with a second person?
I think it's harder with a second person than with yourself.
Okay.
No, because with yourself, you can really get into that area, and you can really get into this moment where you can have a full body experience. Where with another person, it's a lot about them being in that area as well.
Right. And you have to find a person who is capable, which is hard. And
Tantra people can sometimes be a little freaky. I'm not putting any people who practice Tantra down. It's a wonderful art, but there are some groups that get a little freaky. And, I to each their own, but some of it's not for me.
Right. Okay, so if I were to practice this with my masturbation, could it conceptually take me out of the X space?
Well, are we talking about masturbation being a personal arena that you claim as your own?
Yes, I'm really, really pro masturbation.
Well,
I think it's really, really important, and I'm going to say this, even though I'm sitting here with a man, I think it is the most important thing that a woman can practice and practice well, because you need to know your body, you need to know what you like, or you will never be able to have a partner really truly pleasure you if you don't know your own body. I think it is the most important thing that women should practice, and it's really ticking me off that it's being invaded. Yeah. So if we can find a way for me to refocus it on me, because that's really what's irritating me, is the focus is becoming no longer about me and is becoming about my ex, and like he hasn't already taken enough from me, he doesn't get to take masturbation.
Right. Right.
This is my personal time. This is my personal space to just be with myself and to pleasure myself, and he's invading it, and it's not okay. It's starting to tick me off.
Well, and let's talk about this for a second, because I think, I'm trying really to stay away from certain topics, but this one especially needs to be addressed if we're getting into aspects of the disrupted feminine. Because in our society, there's been a place where the female has been put down, made to feel less than, made to feel like she's gross if she's not pure, as in virginal or whatever. And this has been hundreds of years of persecution against the woman. And I think even when I was studying human sexuality, this is really important, because just coming out, we have such free women who believe, sex should be so free, but it's hard for them to look back on where women just came from. And women just came from a place where, like, you never talked about masturbation, you never talked about sex, you never talked about anything because this was your virtue. And only within the last 100 years have women really started to challenge this, which that's actually a misconception in history books as well, because there have been moments in history where women started to challenge these gender norms, and men have done so as well. We also have ideas that people were never gay, and that's way not correct. So I think it's really important in this moment that we address the fact that women's sexuality has been really defiled, and so we even what we're doing right here is we're openly talking about sex in order to heal some of these things, because our society in general has been disrupted by their idea of sex. And if it hasn't become clear, we are from Denver, Colorado, and this is one of the most open places in the country, my opinion, and that is a read. But there, Europe, there are other places that do not view sex as the same as we do, and we are very sheltered from it, and we're very hurt by this sheltering of human sexuality. And then we question what is right and what is wrong when it comes to sex, when in a lot of other cultures they just do it and they don't feel bad about it.
All right. I hear what you're saying, and as a feminist, of course, I totally agree with what you're saying. We are in a period where women are refusing to be slut-shamed, where they're changing the dynamic of what that means sexually. I also believe that masturbation, we are more free talking about our sexuality than we are talking about masturbation.
Absolutely.
And I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why the stigma still stands with masturbation, if it's a way of, I don't know. I don't know if it's threatening to men that women can pleasure themselves sometimes better than men can pleasure us.
I think it is absolutely threatening to men, especially when you look at straight dynamics of men. They want to be the provider, and that includes sexual pleasure. So if you can go find it somewhere else, they feel jealous. And I think this definitely trickles down to when a guy sees a girl that they like, and they know that this other guy is having sex with her. It challenges their own masculinity to wonder whether or not they could pleasure her better. And this is really where the jealousy comes from.
It's so me caveman.
Yeah, it is. And even from when you get with a girl and you look back on her sexual partners, you're like, oh, am I really the best, or is she just saying that? And I think...
we're just saying it.
Exactly. Most of the time you are. And it's the same thing with guys, too, when girls ask you that. So,
do girls ask it that much? I mean, come on.
Girls aren't stupid enough because they've been asked enough times, and they know what the answer leads to. So they're right. Like, and usually I think...
I have never asked if I'm the best they've ever had.
Especially for women, I don't think that matters as much to men. I think for a man, they want to be the best that you've ever had. For a woman, they want to be the thing that you love the most.
Okay, but here's the thing. If you really want to be the best... you'll let us use our hands while we're having sex. You will let us pleasure ourselves if it's not happening.
Right. I mean, but here's the thing.
Threatening.
Okay.
I know my body.
When most women walk in on their man masturbating, they blow it off and they're like, okay, he's just jacking off.
Right.
When a guy walks in on their woman masturbating, they're like, oh, why didn't you call me over?
Right. And then they think it's going to lead to that.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes they just need time alone.
Yeah. It's totally understandable.
And it's not something that women just do as single women. I mean, when I was in a relationship, I did plenty. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times afterwards, if it didn't happen during sex, which it didn't sometimes, you would go into the bathroom and finish yourself off. Like, sometimes that has to happen, and it is not
that should never happen. I'm sorry, but nobody should ever have to finish.
You're a guy. You don't understand. I told you about...
No,
stop.
I totally get it, but I think it's so depressing thinking that somebody has to go and finish themselves off. Like, oh God.
Well, sometimes it's just easier than insulting the male ego.
Isn't that the guy coming out in me, though?
Totally.
That's just like, yeah, we should totally just be that good. So, we are coming to the last minute of our half hour. I mean, technically we have 5 more minutes. But we want to get onto the topic that everybody has been wondering since the beginning of this radio show. And that has been what we masturbate to. And since I was asked first, Jayne, you're going to go first. What do you masturbate to?
You want me to just take you on a little...
Take me on a minute-long spiel
Okay.
of what you masturbate to.
I usually, like I said, I usually start with an image of a female body. I think it's not necessarily lesbianism as much as it is connecting with my own feminine body. And then I usually go into memories. Not deep, long stories, but I don't know, call it the greatest hits. Best orgasms and what happened. And I kind of it's like a compilation. I just go through a compilation of previous sexual encounters. The one caveat to that is when I sleep masturbate, where I'm having a dream. It's usually about a famous person or an archetype.
Oh my goodness. That's kinky.
Oh yeah. Dream masturbating is where it's at.
Oh, I love it.
Where you wake up and you're just about to come and you just go ahead and give a little diddle and finish yourself off. I should do that. That would probably erase him.
You absolutely should.
Okay, I'm going to work on that tonight.
Yes.
I'm going to dream masturbate tonight. And then for like a little bit of a finish, I usually go with some sort of emotional attachment. And that's probably why the X comes into play right towards the end, is because I'm more focused on that emotional attachment. Now, sometimes you have to go dirty fantasy, and that's when you're having a really quick time. So, but that's a whole nother day.
Yeah.
Whole nother night.
Yeah. That was a lot. Wow.
Yeah.
What's interesting is when I got out of human sexuality, I took it with some very close friends of mine, and by the end of it, they were telling me, wow, we know more about each other sexually than we ever thought we'd ever know. And that's what happens when you really get down to these conversations. I guess for me, I have to kind of like mark this in stages for you because it's changed throughout my entire life. I think when I was a really young man, I used to masturbate to different kinds of porn, and that was really what it was at. And then I went into where I would masturbate to people that I really liked or had a crush on, and I'd have these fantasies in my head. And then, in my, 19, 20, that area, I kind of retreated more into a pornographic arena. But recently, it's really been a lot more about these fantasies that I just create in my head about somebody that doesn't even exist.
But men are visual. How is
that?
And
see, this is why I don't know if it can be contributed. To other men. I'm really a sexually open male, and this is kind of a really different place for me to talk about this, because even in all of the arenas I have, it's been different. But right now, it's really emotional. It's about what I want in a relationship or with somebody, and the idea of what would be sexually appealing.
I'm totally envisioning you masturbating. Oh my god!
Okay, well, let me finish first.
Sorry.
So, and it gets very erotic because it is really like opening up to my own sexual pleasure. And I think it's been really fun. I think one of the things that sucks about it, though, too, even when talking about the meditation aspect, is these fantasies that I have, usually it'd be like 1 in a million or a billion that I'd ever find somebody who could fulfill them, because I want somebody who's faithful, who isn't having sex with other people, who's really hot, who's like not unwilling to get down in the sheets, but then will leave me alone when I'm doing my professional stuff, and I can go about my life, and they're not too worried about me, and I'm not too worried about them, and we really just come back together and have our really hot thing. But that's not normal reality. So, I guess that's enough about me. Do you have anything else you want to say for this radio show, Jayne? We're about to end up. Tell everybody goodbye and that you love them.
Well, goodbye. I love you. I'll see you in my dreams tonight.
All right, guys. We are going to let you guys go on our first podcast or radio show or whatever you want to call this. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope you guys like this and tell us how you like it, because I hope that we can do this again. maybe we'll turn it into a complete video show where we drink wine and beer. I don't know, but this is really just the pilot, and we want to know what you guys think. I hope it helped, and if you have any questions that you'd like us to talk about on our next show,
or advice,
I don't know what our advice is worth, but it's gotten us somewhere. And thank you. Yeah, if you listen to this, thank you so much, and you have a great Saturday night. Dynver and Jayne from Dynver, Colorado. Peace and out.